Well, and I hope as the sport grows, because we know it's growing. I mean, there's new races every year, and there'll be different companies doing the races. It'll expand. I hope that we can keep the core of who we are as the Swimrun family. I hope that stays as clean and pure. I just hope that it stays as the positive place for people to come and do a very difficult sport. I mean, some of those runs I walked up that hill you guys ran in Catalina. I got to the top and I was like, well, this is what I don't do this for fun. But I just hope that we can keep that energy and that positive and family feel to it. I would really hope that can be true, because it's part of the reason why people come back. And it's part of the reason why it's so much fun.
Welcome to the Löw Tide Böyz, a Swimrun Podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 282 of the show. We have yet another great episode for everyone this week, Chipper.
Yes.
Joining us to talk about all things volunteerism and swimrun is the Swimrun volunteer extraordinaire herself, the incomparable Christine Schiepke. She is the wife of a really good friend of ours, Mike Schiepke, and she's been volunteering at swimrun events for years, and we wanted to have her on for a while, but we finally got her to chat about, let's see it from the other side of the race.
And that's what the show's about. Every which way on the swimrun spectrum, we'll talk to you. And she was volunteering so good, Ötillö decided to bring her on as a paid position. But she really, it came through so heavily. Like, she just gets so much joy out of volunteering and watching other people, achieve these things. You could tell it really energized her and charges her up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she was awesome. It was great to chat with her. We talked about how she discovered swimrun through her husband, why she started volunteering, and how it really kind of changed her life and became just a big part of her experience at swimrun. She has zero interest in doing one.
We tried.
He's like, hey, when are you signing up for one? But there to support and loves that aspect of it. So I think if you're interested and curious about swimrun and not sure if it's for you, it might still be for you, because you get all the community vibes, all the sweet swimrun vibes without having to get your feet wet if you don't want to. But yeah, it was great.
And a free t-shirt, at least.
Free t-shirt.
Free t-shirt. I think it's a great way for people that have maybe received so much from swimrun, want to give a little bit of it back. But we do know that folks, hey, I'm not racing this race, I'm actually going to go and volunteer. It's a great way to give back. And, obviously volunteers at all these races is such like a, it can sometimes be a thankless job. I think we try to go out of our way to thank people, and everyone that we've come across on the course does a really good job of thanking those volunteers. But now you can kind of put a face to the name that you've probably seen or corresponded with or picked your packet up or gotten a gel from or something out there. Great energy on the episode.
Oh, good. So good. But before we get to that conversation, Chipper and I have a race next weekend, or actually at the time of airing, just a few days from where you're listening or watching this show, we will be in Bellingham, Washington for the Bellingham Swim Run. I'm stoked.
I'm looking forward to it. Great place to race. Love Lake Patton, where we're going to be traversing around for a few hours out there. Love the Orcas vibes. Get the swimrun community there. Have a great swim run out there. Really looking forward to that. We've been getting several messages already. Really excited to see folks coming out. I'm also
shout out Terry. Send us a message. See you in Bellingham.
Good work.
Hell yeah.
Good work. Also, I'm really enjoying the 9 a.m. start time.
Yes.
I'm actually going to sleep
we have to check out of our Airbnb at 10, so this is going to be interesting. But yeah, sleep into the start. If that isn't a reason to try swimrun,
absolutely. There's still time to register before this episode airs. We got a discount code for you as well. We're coming from California, quick flight up there, a relatively inexpensive hotel. So I'm going up on Saturday, flying back on Sunday, back to work on Monday. No one at work is going to be the wiser that I was in Washington.
None the wiser. You're going to tell everybody.
Well, besides giving my race report at the first meeting Monday morning. But yes, come check that out with us there. The code
is Löw Tide Böyz for 20% off your registration. So sign up. If you're waiting for the last minute, let us know. We'll probably bring you a t-shirt. If you tell us you signed up the day before and you're still coming up, we got some swag for you. So, and sticker for everyone who's out there, whoever wants one.
Lovely.
Yeah, so I'm super stoked. I wouldn't say I have a clean bill of health, still feeling a little injured, but Chipper's is gonna get me through this thing, and it's gonna be fun to be out there and do a race together.
Saddle up, partner.
Just like old times.
Just saddle up.
Old times.
Here
What
we
are we
go.
talking about? That's gonna be fun.
I'm really looking forward to it as well. I already got cleared out freezer space for my shoes to go in there after the invasive snail. New England, New Zealand sea snail.
I don't know what it was.
Anyway, they're invasive.
Yeah, not endangered.
Also, we mentioned it. Let's see if we can make this 3 episodes in a row. Last time we mentioned we got Wild Swim Run donations, and Bronwyn from the Boston Red Sox got a shout out, and Hugh Bowman got a shout out for donating. Boom. We banked another donation in. Will Ramsey, thank you for donating in. Here is your Löw Tide Böyz shout out for donating to Wild Swim Run, helping bring more women and girls into the sport of swim run.
Yep.
Let's get that donation button. I think we're good enough to send. I think one more donation will be good enough for one to get an entry to get a
scholarship to one young woman or girl to attend one of their camps, which are obviously awesome. If you're not following Wild Swimmer on Instagram, what are you doing? Sign up for that. And you can just head to our website, scroll all the way to the bottom on the homepage, and you can donate right there. And help us keep this thing going and get more people into the sport of swim run.
Absolutely. But without any further ado, we'll kick it over to our amazing conversation with the volunteer extraordinaire, Christine Schiepke from LA. She's an LA woman.
Mm-hmm.
Volunteer extraordinaire.
Very excited for this conversation. Welcome to the show, Christine Schiepke, volunteer extraordinaire, volunteer of the year, volunteer of the decade, whatever title you want, it's yours. I'm so happy to have you on. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. I always love to talk about volunteering, and I love to talk about swim run, so this is perfect.
Hey, you're in the right place if you like to talk about swim run. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. I will say one thing before we start. When we were in Catalina, I watched as people stopped you guys and talked to you about how appreciative they were of your podcast and how helpful you were to newbies, especially. One young woman, I was on my way to the restroom and stopped Chris, and I think you remember me seeing you, and I was so touched I almost started to cry. She was so grateful. She was like, I got so much information from you. So I just want you guys to know that you are doing an amazing service for all of the newbies, especially, because they get to see what everybody else is doing and what people are using, and you're so helpful, and you guys should give yourself a big, huge pat on the back.
Well, thank you so much for saying
thanks for
that,
coming.
But we're not here to
Thanks
talk
for
about
going.
it. We're
This
here
is
to talk
about
about talk about you and talk about volunteerism. And I think, let's bring the gratitude back to you. I mean, I'm sure I speak for the thousands of swim runners who have done Odyssey races and Swim Run NC races and Lake James races and, Swim Run Knox, like I don't, wherever there's a swim run. And, Mike may or may not have been racing. You were there volunteering. So thank you on behalf of all of us
Yes.
being out there and helping us have the adventures that we want to have.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And Mike started first with Casco Bay, right kind of in the beginning. I think it was in 2017, I believe, maybe 2018. And I went because I was like, I've never been to Maine. I want to go. And so we went, and I was like, this is amazing. And I am married to an athlete. I am not an athlete. I do swim. I do run. I don't do swim run. I don't do any sports at all. That's not who I am. Mike and I have been together for 30 years almost. No, more than 30 years now.
Wow.
Always supported him, and he's always supported me in the things I want to do. So once I started volunteering, I think the second year, the first year I didn't volunteer, I was on the spectator boat, and people were so positive and fun and engaged and supportive of each other. I was like, I want to be part of this. I want to be involved in this. And so the second year I volunteered. And every year Mike would add more races, and every year I would volunteer. Like, where are we going? I'm ready. What's up next? So we went to all those, especially in the beginning, we went to every race in the United States, I feel like. We went to a lot. So I kept volunteering, and I kept talking to people about volunteering and talking to people about how exciting and fun it is to vicariously be involved. Because when you're a volunteer, you get to experience the power of it and the friendships and how supportive and loving and kind people are to each other. And I've never experienced that in all Mike has been doing all kinds of multi-sports for, as long as I've known him. And this is the first time where I was really like, I really want to be part of this. And it's been a blast. I always have a good time. I'm always exhausted afterwards because, and you
Because
can,
you're working so much.
the thing about volunteering is you're a volunteer, not a employee. You can do as little or as much as you want. You can just hand out water or help set up, or you can help do the course. You would be on a kayak, you would be on a boat. Because of that, I think everybody can find their niche, and it's so much fun. I would encourage all of the racers out there, if you have a partner or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a best friend or a roommate or your parents, or you have a teenage or older child, bring them with you and have them volunteer, because they'll experience it in a much more important way. Casco was the first time I ever really saw that, where I was talking to a woman. I was like, why'd you volunteer? She said, oh, my daughter's over there. She's racing the first time. We're here from Philadelphia. I just thought I would volunteer. And she was awesome. So I would encourage you, if you have anyone in your life, invite them to join you. Invite them to sign up to volunteer, because everybody has a good time. You get a t-shirt.
Repping now.
Well,
Looks great.
You're repping well.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the special volunteer shirt. Like that
no,
one.
this is actually a participant shirt. So I'm cheating because I didn't participate, but I really like this color. So I got one.
I think
No one's telling.
Don't tell
Yeah.
anyone.
Oh, no, this won't get
There's-
out.
yeah.
One thing that came through there when what you were describing, and you said, oh, Mike, your husband has done trail runs and triathlons and every kind of thing, but
Right.
swim run, it was something about that. And to me, I heard the community aspect, and that's something that Chris and I mean, we talk about it almost at every opportunity we have, but it sounds like that's what kind of got you initially hooked into kind of volunteering, was just the very supportive and welcoming community.
I've seen some amazing things. Like, I remember, I think in the first year that we did Austin, I observed a young woman who had never done it before, and a couple of other people who were racers. She asked me, and I was doing registration. She said, hey, I don't really know how to do this with a pull. How do I do? And next thing you knew, there were 4 or 5 people around her, showing her how to put the pull buoy together, showing her how to wear it, showing her how to attach it to her belt. Or I have a piece of bungee that might work for you. I don't think you see that in any other competitive sport. You would never see that on triathlon. If somebody walked up to somebody and said, I'm not quite sure how to wear my bike, they'd be like, well, good luck, bye. But in this sport, people are so supportive of each other. Yes, it's competitive, but it's also kind and supportive. I just can't use that word enough, because I feel like people are so supportive, even if they're competing against each other and taking care of each other and making sure, hey, the trail goes this way and not that way. You might want to slow down, or you might want to speed up. We were in North Carolina and we were in a parking lot. Somebody ran up behind somebody else and said, hey, your buoy is dragging behind you. You need to pick that up and do this. And they, in doing that, lost some time of their own, for their pace, but they did it anyway, because it's a supportive sport. So it's remarkable.
Yeah. And swim runners always have so much little MacGyver trinkets and extra clips and stuff around. There's always the meters of that to lend out. I'm guilty of this. I have probably 400 feet in my garage here, so all different colors you can want.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting, the evolution of the gear, since Mike's been doing it for, I think we're now at year 8 or something. The evolution of the gear, and like people are like, oh, well, I've been wearing. I mean, the first time they did it, I think they wore wetsuits with cut off sleeves. Like
a triathlon kind of wetsuit. Yeah.
So it has evolved a lot, and it's nice to see that people are so that anybody will give you help about like what kind of gear you need to wear. Like, and also the other thing that I've seen is the exchange of wetsuits. Like, people will be like, hey, I'm coming. I've got this wetsuit. I'm not sure I'm going to use it. I'll bring it in case somebody needs it. Now, where else would you see that? I can't even imagine.
The Löw Tide Böyz Gear Loaner Program, if you happen to be a male that's either small, tall, or medium tall, is pretty well subscribed.
It is.
You've outbid many a person.
Yeah, but I'm curious, Christine, so you obviously have a love for it, but from kind of your side of it, what do you see that's such a big draw to this sport? I mean, we talked about the community, but is there any other areas where you do registration, you're on the course, you're at the finish line, like any other aspects of the sport that from a volunteer perspective that maybe athletes that might be racing aren't really privy to?
Well, I think the most important thing that I would say about that is that it's because it's such an adventurous sport. Each race is completely different. A lot of times you'll do a triathlon and the triathlons will be the same. I remember going to an Ironman with Mike, And it was just like these people were going to the polls, and I was like, hey, it's cool because my kid was young, he's in his 20s now, but he was like, oh, look, there we go again. And this sport is every time it's different. And I think one of the exciting things about doing it, even for me, is that the weather counts. We've all seen some interesting weather. We've seen some interesting course changes because of like, there's a weird weed bloom in a lake somewhere, so you can't go through that lake. So the variables, so even if you do the same course every year, let's say Pasco Bay every year, it's never going to be the same. There's always going to be something different, something new, something challenging in a different way. And I think that's one of the exciting things about the sport is that there's that nature thing. There's, there's a variable, like maybe somebody built a house on the island that you were planning on running across that happened last. So there's all these variables. And I think that's what keeps it fresh every time and keeps it exciting every time. And I just can't tell you the amount of enthusiasm I feel from the runners and the swimmers. I think that part of the reason that I'm so enthusiastic, and I don't have a reputation of being a little hyperactive on the course, but it's because I feel the enthusiasm. I feel the excitement.
It feeds you.
Yeah, it does. And it's cyclical. So, and then my volunteers feel it. And then they come back and they talk about how great it is. I mean, we've had people who couldn't race, so they volunteered and they're like, maybe I'll just volunteer when I can't race because it's so much fun and it's so exciting and it's such positive, loving energy. And I keep using that same thing, but it's just, I just comes back to that for me every time. So I've been lucky. Mike and I had been to many races, and I've been really fortunate in that I've never had a negative experience. I joke that I've had 2 people complain. I've been doing this 8 years. I do many races.
It's pretty good.
That's
one
good.
was
That's good stats.
and one was an athlete. Just 2. Now, people say like, oh my God, that was really hard. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. What was I thinking? But they always have a smile. I mean, you noticed it. When people come across the finish line, these people are smiling. Even if they fall down in a pile, they're smiling, they're excited, they're happy, they feel energized by how they feel when they come across the finish line and the reception they get. And we have an amazing, I now work for Ötillö. I can say that I am still a volunteer for other races, but now I'm a staff member, which I'm
You're like
really
a professional volunteer.
Professional.
Can we say that?
Volunteer.
Which is, but it's funny because it's not like, it's not like I'm bringing like 100K doing my own stuff. Oh,
It's Swimrun after all, I'm surprised they're not paying you in pool buoys.
Yeah.
And racer t-shirts. Yeah. T-shirts as you need.
I was joking earlier is that we need to make pants because if they make pants, I would never have to buy any clothing again.
They got socks from a couple of years ago, so we're good there.
I rock the socks still.
Yep.
You've covered every aspect of it. I've certainly, we've checked in and gotten our bibs and timing chips from you. You've been at the finish line. Is there a particular position, I guess, that you kind of like to do, or you sort of like to be I'm getting that you like to be the Energizer Bunny and just kind of going all around to every stop.
I do a lot of different things. I don't do any coursework at all. I have done water stations and stuff like that, but I don't do any coursework at all. JR and all those guys Aaron and all those guys, Lars are all there. That's their thing. Brent, that's their thing. But I love check-in. I love to do packet pickup because I get to see all the athletes. They remember me. I remember them. Although I do sometimes have face blindness and I'll have somebody come up and I'll be like, oh, I remember you from, and he's like, I've never done that race before. I don't know. That does happen sometimes. There's, some people look familiar and similar to other people.
Sure.
I was on an elevator in Stockholm and I said to a person who I won't name, who is a very prominent swimrun athlete, he got on the elevator with another guy. And I said, oh my God, you look like a swimrunner. Are you doing the race? And he just looked at me like, hi, Christine. I was like, hi. And then he left and I was like, oh, damn. So.
Oh, and then it hit you.
Oh, yeah. And he walked away and I was like, oh, damn. He never brought it up.
I didn't, Aaron, very much, but you are a tremendous upgrade to the check-in process. You bring
from a customer-facing perspective. Yes, for sure.
You bring a great energy. You greet every person. You get the number. You're going, and Aaron's just like a machine. He's just like, "What number are you?" Like, boom, 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 just trying to crank through it. And you provide like a really good touch to it. It's a smart move by Lars and the crew to have you on the
Thank you.
on the check-in there.
while I'm happy to do it and I like doing it, I actually like all. There's no aspect. The only thing I don't like is packing up the gear at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Nobody likes that. That's where all like, okay, here we are.
It's where you're like, a shift is over. So, I actually have an interesting perspective on this because at Catalina a few weeks ago, I volunteered for the first time.
Uh-huh.
I think officially because I wasn't racing.
Yeah.
So I kind of got to see you, organizing volunteers, sort of deploying resources, getting people on kayaks, doing all this stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what that, like the volunteer plan looks like? Maybe we can use Catalina as an example since it's just happened.
Right.
That race is, you're going over ridges, you're dealing with bison, you're on the other side of the island. Like from a volunteer, maybe they're personally dealing with bison, but from a volunteer perspective, like how do you even like organize?
It's a huge team effort. It's an enormous team effort. Especially Aaron is very good at structuring. This is what we need. Catalina is the race I had been begging to come back to. I live in LA. I was raised going to Catalina weekends with my
nice.
great uncle was the Commodore of the Catalina Yacht Club when I was a kid.
Wow.
Sleep on a boat in the harbor. The parents got to sleep in the cabin. The kids would sleep on a boat. I'm 7 years old, you can imagine. So I know Catalina. I have a huge affection for the Pacific and for the waters of Southern California because I was raised here on these beaches. Once we did the Ötillö race in 2020, right before the big shutdown, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for this to come back. And as soon as I started getting involved with Odyssey, then it became a Catalina. I think they probably were just shut up about Catalina. So this was
all right,
they're hearing it from us.
Yeah. Oh,
they're getting it from both ends.
It's like
the athletes, internal, everyone's like, do it.
Exactly. So this is a good example of how this is probably one of the most difficult because of the logistics. And I think Aaron probably needs to take a nap for another 8 months because that was so hard. He said, I've done a triathlon in Iceland without not ever being to Iceland. This was harder than that because the logistics, there are no cars.
Wow.
Just left everything on these ferries. And so the logistics also of getting volunteers were people don't live in Two Harbors. I mean, it's a population of like 60 people. So it's not like you can just say, hey, you live in the area. So we were importing people and spreading the word on that is like I reached out to so many different people. And we were very fortunate to get a lot of really terrific, wonderful volunteers. But the logistics of it is like, how do we drive a kayak off for this volunteer? And we found some great people on the island. The locals were so unbelievably supportive. I mean, Brian at the dive shop and the guy who ran the restaurant and Jordan, who I met while I was waiting to use the restroom when I was out there 3 or 4 weeks before the race. The locals were super supportive and super helpful. And so going forward, the lesson to me was use your local support and also tell every single person who's racing and every single person you think might want to volunteer. And it worked. I mean, we probably could have used a few more, but we had a really good volunteer staff and people were really hardworking. I mean, I think one of the most amazing things to me is that we had 2 boats planned to depart. One was at 5:45 and one was at 7 p.m. And the reason we had the 7 p.m. boat is we did not think we would be able to get all the finish line stuff on the boat and all of the people on the boat. 2 different boats, one to one place, one to the other. People came together and even the athletes at that point became volunteers. We schlepped that shit on the boat, pardon my language. We got that stuff on the boat. We were like JR and Trista and Marcus and you guys, and we were just like, we're going to get this stuff on the boat. We're going to get everybody home and safe before 8 o'clock. And we did it. And it was all because people just stepped up. And so even at that point, the athletes became volunteers, which I don't know another sport where you'd ever see that. And like, who stays after a marathon and helps clean up? Nobody.
Well, it's kind of hobbling around.
They're all going like, can I go over here? So people were it was such a good lesson to me to, if somebody says, can I help? Say yes. And then they become invested even deeper. I mean, I had people who came up who had just come to watch the race because one of their friends did, and they were like, tell me, can I give you my email? Can I give you my phone number? And this happened to me on Orcas the last time. People were like, walked up to me and said, how do I volunteer? I was like, you just think information.
Came to the right person.
Yeah. I am also a person who will give out my personal phone number to anybody. In fact, it was on flyers on Catalina Island with my phone number.
Oh, boy.
Text me because I don't care. You can call me. I mean, I'll be like, okay, hopefully you're on the stock. It always works out. And at least, I mean, I had some guy who texted me and said, hey, by the way, I'm going to be on a boat near you guys. Do you want some help? I was like, hey, let me just hook you up with something. He just saw my name on a flyer at the general store and sent me a text.
Wow.
I'm going to be doing more of that. I think just like really reaching out in locals and really just saying, hey, just spread the word. This is how you, so we're now, and as new races come up in the future.
Just don't give out your social security number or call
Yeah.
and stuff
Oh,
like
I
that.
stopped.
Keep routing number to yourself.
Yeah, I stopped doing that.
Got a lot of credit cards now.
Yeah, and I also have all these car warranties. It's so weird. Dozens of car
I
warranties.
love it.
But
I do want to reemphasize your point about the locals. There is one restaurant there, and I think we ate there probably 6 or 7 times in 3 days.
yeah, because that's all. there is.
But everyone that was there was just extremely welcoming and kind, and they were like, hey, this is so cool that you, to me, what really came through was they really loved the island as well, and they saw that we were enjoying our experience and our time there,
Yeah.
and that like filled them up. And for them to help with their truck or their boat to help move
Yeah.
the kayak, and they really enjoyed that piece, and that's what really came through to me when within the restaurant and the shop.
Yeah, it's a unique situation in that it's a tiny little town, and they have a general store and a restaurant and a dog
Hey,
show. That's
like a singular.
That's all that.
Yeah.
So like when I went with, I was lucky to be invited to go with JR and Lars in, I think it was at the end of January to do kind of like a scope out. And then it's pre-tourist season. And it was, I mean, I met every single person that worked in 2 harbors in 2 days. And I think it was 15 people. So, and then when we
Wow.
came back, Mike and Liza and a couple of our other friends went about 3 weeks before the race just for the day. And every single person was like, Christine, you're back. Oh, it's great to see you. And this happened to me again on when I showed up on race day, because I was in Avalon doing check-in on Avalon. So I showed up on race morning. I walked up and the bartender Andrew, who just walked by me, and he's like, hey, Christine, you're back. So it's there's a certain charm to that race that I don't think you can get at any other race, because
Yeah.
it's really a small venue. Now, mind you, Orcas is similar in that it's a small community. They have a much bigger tourist base on Orcas Island and in the towns there, but you do see the same kind of people over there, and they're happy to see you, and they want to volunteer and they want to participate. So I feel like going forward, this year was a big year of growth for me about figuring out how to get volunteers and how to give positive feedback for volunteers and making sure that they understand how much we appreciate that and how important they are. Because really, none of these races would happen. There's no way to pay
no
people
way.
to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then also when you pay people, it takes, sometimes we give a stipend, especially to be kayakers. And like we paid their ferry to get over there, and they got that amazing hamburger. I don't know, maybe that was but you're not employing these people. They're coming on their own and out of their own enthusiasm. And I felt like every volunteer that I talked to at Catalina was like, I can't wait to come back. I can't wait to volunteer. And I'm going to bring this person, this person, and this person.
Yeah.
So that's what I want for every race. That's my goal is for every volunteer to have an amazing, exemplary experience and to want to come back and do it again. And I also want to really encourage athletes, please tell your friends and family to volunteer, to join us, because they'll have a blast. They will not regret it. And they'll see you. And they can, see, oh, wait, that's what you're doing? And they're on a water stake and they see you come up that hill. And they're like, oh, this is what you're doing. So it's super fun to that. And
Yeah, and I would say, as from the athlete side, a shameless plug for, it's probably a good way for you to be able to do more swim run races if your significant
Good
other
thinking,
or
Chris.
friends are willing to come out and have a good volunteer experience. It's like, hey, do you want to go volunteer as this race in Whistler, for example? I'll just do the race while you do that.
well,
Just saying,
yeah, interestingly enough, that's kind of what got me hooked, is like I'd never been to Maine. Let's go to Maine. Oh, so I've been to a whole bunch of places in the United States. I consider myself pretty well traveled. A bunch of places I'd never been before because Mike was doing North Carolina. I'd never been to North Carolina. Now I've been to North Carolina, a couple different locations in North Carolina.
Right.
I did have a conversation with a woman whose husband has been racing for 5 years. She'd never volunteered. She's never gone to any of the races. She's always like, that's his thing. And she volunteered Catalina. She goes, I'm in. When he goes, I'll
You
go.
got another one.
It's gonna
You got another one. Love it.
Real those partners and those family. And a lot of parents will come and be like, I had a great time. I'm going to come back. I had really had that experience last year at Castro. I had a couple of people who said, I volunteered last year. I had such a good time that I'm going to come back. We'll come back anytime when our kid does it, and so that's exciting. I haven't had anybody say to me, I am never coming back and doing this again. This is ridiculous. They always are like, oh, well, that was fun. Let's do that again. I like to experience that again.
It's true.
Nice.
It's true.
So Swimrun has taken you and Mike to many different places. Is there any that really kind of stick out, or you had a really memorable experience? Could have been volunteering. It could have been the race experience. You've volunteered at every Ötillö / Odyssey race. And then what about in Sweden at the...
So the one thing I did when Mike went to and Liza went to the World Champs is I didn't volunteer, which was a big stretch for me, a strain for me. And I wished I had, because afterwards I was like, why didn't I? But I did get to talk to a lot of people. And so that was a different kind of experience for me. I think it used to be that my very favorite race was Casco Bay. I love Maine. I've never been there in my adult life. Apparently I went as a child. I don't remember. But now that's been replaced by Catalina. That's my new favorite. But I love that I've seen all kinds of different places in different environments, and that it's always fresh. I think the race I am most comfortable doing is Casco. I know Casco. I can do Casco I'm very, very comfortable with Casco.
You know it more than probably the racers do.
Well, I don't know the course because it changes and there are lots of variables.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sure you all remember the year of the fog. The only thing that happens sometimes, whether it doesn't work in your favor. We had that one very foggy year. Was that 2 years or 3 years ago? Where the race was fogged out. Completely fogged out. And we had no... And people were very patient and very kind. Poor Aaron, I thought that poor man was going to oust. Because he was...
I thought he was going to quit the game there for a minute.
Oh, he was,
I
have to tell you, I admire that man so much. He is so good at what he does. I mean, he was on the phone and he's like, how many boats you got? Because they had to get the racers out of the water, or the Coast Guard was going to arrest one of us. I don't know which one. Coast Guard guy come up to me and I'm standing there and he's like, you realize if you don't get those racers out of the water, somebody's going to get arrested. I was like, I'm just a volunteer.
Yes. I was just going to say, it's like,
I don't work
just a
here.
volunteer. I'm just
I
a
don't
volunteer.
know anything.
Get that out.
Yeah,
like
I
I
have
have
on.
And I got the clipboard and a walkie, but I'm just a volunteer.
Staff. It says staff shirt.
I think that the biggest thing for me is that I've got to see and experience new places. And I've also met some of the most amazing, some of our closest friends now as a family, and Mike and I and our son Carl have been people who we've met through Swimrun. Local people from other states. I've just made some really close, wonderful friendships. Yeah. And I think that goes for you guys too. I know that you have made great friendships with people who you probably would not encounter.
Oh, absolutely. It's
100%.
the type of thing. I'll put Mike on the spot here. I remember I was in LA for vacation and I was in Manhattan Beach or something. He's like, well, come on up. We're going to do a swim run. Bring your kit. And I basically got like a concierge tour of Marina Del Rey grounds that all the Tower 26 folks do. And it was so nice of them. And I remember going back to the hotel and just kind of beaming, and my wife being like, so how was that? I'm like, of course it was great. It was awesome. It was so much fun. Wherever we land, we can just put out a call. Yes. And if there's swim runners, they're going to be welcoming and they're going to be, gregarious and charismatic. And you just do everything they can to make our experience as pleasant as possible. And honestly, I think there's something in the DNA of the sport, which, bringing it back to volunteerism, like, we think it's really important from our side to be like, hey, if we're trying to grow the sport and we want this thing to be as welcoming, as inclusive, as diverse as possible, like, we need to lead with that. We need to lead with kindness and being welcoming. But that's not just coming from like athletes, but I think from the organization as a whole, and certainly from the volunteer side, like showing empathy, like the whole thing is such an important piece. I'm curious if, when we're thinking about, hey, we want to get more volunteers, we also want to get more athletes showing up at these races, like, Do you think that that's going to continue to play such a big role in how the sport continues to grow?
Absolutely. I think the sport's going to continue to grow because people talk to each other about it. I can't tell you how many times when I had talked to people about it, they were like, what do you mean? You swim in your shoes? That's always the question. You swim? And I'm like, yeah, it's really cool. You should watch this video. And I'll point them to your podcast and I'll point them to like, just Google it and watch what it happens. And then people are like, I'm really interested in that. That's really fascinating to me. And the same with like, I had 2 volunteers this time who I work in television and as a prop master and as a set construction coordinator. And I had 2 younger women who had been my prop assistants years. And I posted something on Facebook and one of them sent me a text and said, can I volunteer? I was like, absolutely. And she said to the other one, let's go together. They did a water station. They had a great time. They helped us clean up. And they're like, okay, when you come back to Catalina, we'll bring more friends. So
Beautiful.
that kind of thing, and like I said, I have a spouse of a person who's been doing this for 5 years and she volunteered and she's like, okay, now I'm in. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So I encourage those of you who are athletes to encourage your friends and family, not necessarily your spouses. I mean, a lot of people have kids and they can't do that. But to encourage your friends, your parents, your next door neighbor to join us, especially if it's a local race. You'll have a great time and you'll appreciate the vibe and the energy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is good to point out, and you can confirm or deny this, but I think you'll confirm it. But it's not a commitment. Hey, you're there from like 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. thing. If you want to do just the morning shift or just the afternoon or the close, like whatever, there'll be gratitude for whatever amount of time that you can donate and give.
People do. Although I do notice that sometimes people say, okay, I can do a 3-hour thing and then I'm just going to want to be at the finish line when my racer finishes. And then the racer comes across and then they come back up to me and go, okay, so he's going to hang, I'm not hanging. What can I do to help you? So they do stay. It happens so many times. Like they'll be like, oh, well, I just only going to stay, from his start to when I see him to when he's done. And then they do that and they're like, okay, I can help you. You want me to do this? You want me to sort t-shirts? I'm happy to do it. So that happens all of the time. I have people who come from like water stations and they're like, I'm done. I'm like, okay, great. Here's your t-shirt and here's your meal ticket. And they're like, well, no, what else do you want me to do? Because they want to continue being in it because it's fun. And I think that's one thing I am good at is keeping the positive energy up. I try to keep the positive energy up throughout whatever's happening. And that encourages people and makes them feel valued. I want the racers to feel valued. I want the employees and the staff to feel valued. I want all of the volunteers and the family members and the little kid playing in the dirt. I want everyone to feel valued and welcome because that's who we are as a Swimrun family. That's who we are.
Well, you do an exemplary job of that, I will say.
I mean, what else is there to say?
I mean, that was kind of the bow on it right there. I don't think Chris and I could have planned anything out quite like that.
Yeah, this is where I would tell trippers like, hey, that was a hot quote for the preview for the show. We've talked about everything you've done. Now, looking forward, is there a destination to both visit and volunteer? Maybe Mike needs to chime in if there's like a bucket list destination that you'd want to go.
Yeah, I really want him to do Cannes, as you people say in English.
Oh.
I French. I want to go so badly. So I keep saying, South of France is nice. You should try that one.
Super nice.
He is doing Rock Band this year. I'm excited about that because I love Norway. We've been to Norway. In 2019, he and his friend Brian did the Swimrun to the End of the World, which is on the eastern side of Norway. Mike and I have the fortune to spend almost 3 weeks in Norway just traveling about. So I'm excited about going to Stavanger and I'm a little terrified for him because Rock Band looks scary to me, but I'm sure he'll do great. I'm sure he'll
He will.
Mike just handed me this.
The bucket list?
Australia.
One of my very closest friends lives in Australia, and I've been saying Australia for a while.
There's a burgeoning swimrun scene down there. There's now like 4 races, which is great.
Yeah, there's lots of races down there.
Yeah.
After one, Adriel Young is the Johnny Appleseed of swimrun, as you're supposed to do. Shout out to Adriel. He exported the sport that he learned to love in Sweden and brought it home to the motherland.
Well, that's pretty much how I feel like all of these races happen, is like somebody, like these crazy drunk guys invented this sport in Sweden, and then it just was like, that's cool, let's do that. And then somebody else saw it. And that's how it came to the US, is that somebody saw that crazy thing in Sweden and thought, why don't we do that? We've got places to do that. So
Yeah.
got
It's funny when you say it that way, because I mean, it's so true. It's like, Sean Durkin and Andy Hewitt, right?
Yeah.
Brought it to California.
Yeah.
Lars brought it to Maine, and Herbert brought it to North Carolina. And probably Herbert is probably one of the most significant people in this, because he was the one like putting stuff on Slow Twitch and the sort of triathlon world to kind of get the word out about it.
Yeah. He's a force to be reckoned with. That's a race I will miss as a volunteer, as a human being. That is a classic example of successful volunteerism, because everybody is a volunteer. Nobody's an employee, and they work their asses off, and they have a good time, and they're supportive and lovely. And I know it's difficult for them. I mean, they have families, and it's hard to keep that ball rolling. And they finally were not able to keep going. But you guys were there this year, right?
No, we weren't able to make it.
But we did do it
able to
once.
Make it work.
Yeah, see, this is where the face blindness happens, where I can't remember who was at what race. You were there.
It's okay.
Honestly, people assume we're at every race for some reason.
Yeah, they
it's
do.
like, oh yeah, you did this thing.
Because we talk about it a lot.
Never
It's
been to
because
Germany.
you have that
Sorry.
all-encompassing presence. Do we feel that you're at every race? Oh,
Right.
we feel you.
Chris and I are joint conductors on the hype train of Swimrun.
Well, you're good at it.
So yeah.
It worked
Yes,
well.
someone at one point someone called us swimrun evangelists, and I think that's just a thing you
Fair
can call.
enough.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And I told you at the very beginning when we talked about this, is that people stop you and talk about what good source of information you are. And I think that's something to be really. I mean, I'm really proud that you asked me to join you. And I'll be honest with you, because this is not
the whole week.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I am not a person who does public speaking.
I didn't tell you we're just a couple of goofballs over here.
I know. Mike
No,
didn't
Mike
give
kept
you the
saying-
inside scoop.
Yeah. And Mike's like, it's a conversation, relax. You're good at talking. It's not a big deal. It's like, but it's a camera, and, there are people who are going to watch it. So, and
Yes, the tens of people will be watching it for sure. But yeah, and to that point, Christine, when people come up to us, we're always super humbled and grateful, and try to be really present and just acknowledge people's journey. And it's always like almost embarrassing, because it's like, really, you want me to sign your paddle? It's so bizarre in its way, but we know that it comes from people wanting to give us gratitude. And when we started this, it was to try to be helpful. So the fact that people find it helpful, it's almost like a little like G. Willikers complex, but it's great. I mean, for a while, I can speak for Chipper, some of the early races when we started the show, people would be like, oh, I listened to your show and did everything you said. And we're like, and did everything go okay? Like, oh, we had a great race. So we're like, oh, thank God. Now we're a little bit more seasoned and more comfortable in sort of our general advice that we give out to people. So we'll stand behind it a little bit firmer. But, when we started out, like, one of the reasons we started the show is because, like, we didn't know anything about swimrun. And we're like, hey, if this is going to grow, like, let's, like, reduce the barrier to entry. Let's try to demystify it. Like, it doesn't have to be some secret, and we would get a lot of questions. Well, what about this? What about that? It's like, well, why don't you do what 90%, 99% of swim runners are doing now? And you're probably going to be okay. But yeah, anytime people come up and want to take pictures with us and stuff like that, I mean, it's embarrassing on some level, especially when that happens in front of people who like know us from before the show. And they're like, you guys are just a couple of jokers. But it's this weird thing, and we're super grateful for it. Like, one example is like, for one weekend in Portland, Maine, for about 32 hours, Chipper and I, we're like celebrities, people stopping us and asking us questions and stuff, but only for a very short period. And it's great. And we really appreciate it. And, we never take it for granted, because it's just, it's such a bizarre thing. But yeah, even at, at Catalina, when this lady came up and was chatting and you came up afterwards, I was almost embarrassed. It's like, oh, you heard that whole thing?
I was almost in tears. I was like, she was so grateful to you. But it is weird. I will tell you, in my own little tiny infamous way, I do have that phenomenon where I am walking there and people are like, hey, Christine. And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but I always know who the races are, because I don't always remember everybody's name. I remember a lot.
You're number 72 from Whistler. I gave you the bib. That would be some Rain Man stuff right there.
So after the race in Whistler, I don't remember what I was trying to find something, and I went to the grocery store, and I got stopped by 3 people in the grocery store at Whistler.
Awesome.
And we were like, "Oh, Christine, oh my gosh, we was, so great to see you." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is so weird." People know who I am.
Well, same to what Chipper and I would say is like, hey, we must be doing something right. Clearly, Christine, you're doing something right. Now,
Yeah.
like exactly as I was saying earlier, we're trying to build this sport in a way where it represents the greatest things of it and not like tone down the competitiveness and turn up the community and the vibe. I mean, you're basically doing the same thing from your side. I mean, the volunteer experience, from a racer's perspective is really huge. Even if it's just like that little pep talk, that encouragement, that smile. It's like, you can do this. Oh, the next aid station's just down the way, like whatever it is. Such a powerful thing. And again, I know I mentioned at the beginning, but on behalf of like all the thousands of swim runners that you've supported in one capacity or another, thank you.
Of course. It's my pleasure. And also, I will tell you that all of the swim runners are super grateful to the volunteers. They're super polite. They're super enthusiastic. They're kind. They're always say thank you. It's quite remarkable. I mean, I've seen so many swim runners come up to a volunteer, say, "Thank you so much for volunteering." I love that people do that. And I encourage you as athletes who are listening to the show, thank you for thanking them and thank you for supporting them because, like I said before, without them, it wouldn't be quite as smooth and as wonderful as it has been. And I admire the swim runners because they are gracious, and that's a big deal. As a volunteer, you like that pat on the back. It is. I mean, that's kind of what fuels us, right? If people are mean to you, I remember volunteering somewhere else on something else, and just have like a guy like swear at me because and I was like, okay, so I'm volunteer. Like, I don't have to.
Well, there was this one time I was volunteering at a race that Chipper was doing. It was this duathlon or something. This was years and years and years ago.
South Bay
and
Duathlon.
It was like a loop course. And I'm there marshaling the loop course, and I have all these triathletes like yelling, asking me like what lap they were on.
Yeah.
And I was like, how am I supposed to know what lap you're on?
It's like 100 people.
Like, I don't even know how to answer this question. Do you have data that you can, how many miles are supposed to go? It just seemed very type A triathlon. I think one of the reasons that a lot of people gravitate towards swim run, it's like, just kind of get away from that. Everything's ish. Got to embrace the ambiguity a little bit more. And I think with that, hopefully the folks who come to swim run and find it and love it, one of the reasons they love it is because the support that they're getting from the race directors, from the volunteers, is just something different and different in a way that's just like, wow, isn't this like a breath of fresh air, really?
Yeah. Well, and I hope as the sport grows, because we know it's growing. I mean, there's new races every year, and there'll be different companies doing the races. It'll expand. I hope that we can keep the core of who we are as the Swimrun family. I hope that stays as clean and pure. I just hope that it stays as the positive place for people to come and do a very difficult sport. I mean, some of those runs I walked up that hill you guys ran in Catalina.
We walked up.
I got to the top and I was like, well, this is what I don't do this for fun. But I just hope that we can keep that energy and that positive and family feel to it. I would really hope that can be true, because it's part of the reason why people come back. And it's part of the reason why it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is something, Chipper, that you and I talk about a lot. It's like, hey, the sport is almost 20 years old. It's managed to maintain this core. And I think it's on us to really continue to sort of like highlight that and embrace that and sort of be about that, in addition to like awesome races and awesome places and pushing yourself to depths that maybe you didn't think were possible. But so much of it is about like, it's going to be on us to, it's our, what's the expression? It's like, we have our hands on the rudder.
Right.
And it's important for us to just keep embodying what we want. Let's create what we want in the world.
Absolutely.
It's too like woo woo or anything. But
no, I think a good thing though. A little woo woo goes a long way in it when you're
That's true.
swimming in frozen water.
it's true.
It is a crazy fun sport, and it is fun to describe it to people who don't. Especially people like I remember describing to my mom, who is no longer with us, but she was in her 90s, explaining to her and I was showing her pictures, and he goes, that looks like a lot of fun, but how did they come up with that? Because they're swimming in their shoes. And I was like, yeah. But she was like, it just looks like so much fun. And for her to get that, I mean,
Yeah.
so just have to kind of keep that energy, that fun energy. And I think part of the reason why I believe it will be is the partner, that you're with a partner and you feed off your partner and you engage with your partner. So it's not like I'm in this, it's just me, just me, just me. And even the people who do solo, there's still also a lot of, you see them, they're like with other people. They're joined.
Yeah.
Their little groups. Like I saw.
Yeah, they're jockeying back and forth and passing and, there's still lots of engagement happening.
Touching in with each other and checking in with each other and encouraging each other. So I think that that's part of the reason why this sport, I think, will last a long time and stay that positive energy, because people, you have to support your partner. And in doing that, I think it kind of sets the tone for being supportive of everybody around you, even if you want to beat their ass.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, it's true. There's so much about it. I mean, the partner aspect, community number one, partner aspect number two, for all the solo swim runners out there. One of the reasons we talk about partners so much is because that is like the most unique thing about this is that you're doing it with someone. And, Chipper and I have been best friends for a super long time. We've done all sorts of races together. So it's like, hey, here's another weird thing we're able to do together. And that's really what started. It was just like, hey, there's this weird race. We're tethered together. We're doing this stuff. Like, we spent 5 to 10 hours a week training together. Like, hey, do you want to train for this thing? And it was like, yeah, of course. And it's, and obviously I think we drank the Kool-Aid maybe a little bit more than the average swim runner, but
Guzzled it.
Here we are.
Definitely by the gallon.
Now we're mixing it. Now we're
very cool. I feel really honored and privileged to be part of this family. I was really pleased and flattered when Lars asked me to come on as staff. That was a big deal for me. I have a real job, a completely different career, but this has been such a bonus in my life. I'm in my 60s. This has been like a whole new world for me, and I've been loving it. I'm just absolutely loving it.
Well, again, we've mentioned it a few times, but you've added so much to the entire Ötillö experience and to any swim run that you interface with. It just levels up the experience and you bring such a good energy and warmth to it. So yeah, thank you so much. And to all the volunteers out there, but really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Coming, you crushed it.
Well, I'm glad. Like I said, I was really flattered to be asked. So thank you for that.
Of course. Well, thank you
Tell
so
your
much
friends
for
to
coming on.
volunteer.
Yes.
Well, if you're doing a swim run, you'll definitely see Christine at the packet pickup. It's just one of the many places that you'll see her out in your next race. But thank you for coming on. Thank you for volunteering. And be sure to think to volunteer when you're out there. And then next time, volunteer yourself and your friends and family in your circle.
Exactly. Tell your neighbors. Tell your friends. Hey, you want to do something fun? Here's Christine's phone number. Call her.
Yeah, we won't give it out on the show, though.
You have to
I
go to
shouldn't
your
even
local market.
Go to your local Two Harbors market.
All right. Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swim run resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Löw Tide Böyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of course, yes.